Well, it is right at 12 o'clock, and I will go ahead and give everybody another minute or so to jump on and get through the waiting room, that kind of thing. But we're not going to wait long because we do want to get right into our agenda for the day. So let's just give it one more minute and then we'll get started.
Oh. Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Sorry, we were having technical difficulties. I'm working with three computer screens, and I'm not quite sure, Lee, what to do with three screens. I have enough trouble with one.
Fly the spaceship. Well, we can hear you, so that's
Thank you, ma'am.
Great.
And I'm going to try to start the video.
Oh, do you have a video to share?
No.
Oh, you're going to try to start your video to see your face.
Right. And apparently, I'm not very good at this. You know, I'm sure I need to find someone who is a little bit more technical. But I have, Lee, I did ask Ms. Linda Anderson, Section 8 Director, to please join me for any questions that you may have regarding the emergency housing vouchers or whatever. So she's with me as well.
Great. So
good morning.
Great. Sounds good. Well, guys, it is 12:02 and we have a little over 40 folks with us this morning. And so I do want to honor everybody's time and make sure that we get going. We do have a number of agencies with us today to just give an update so everybody is aware. Sometimes things have been changing rapidly in this realm as we all navigate through the challenges that we face within homelessness and housing, especially in light of COVID and natural disasters that we've been having. So I don't want to delay us too much, just a bit of housekeeping at the beginning. Go ahead if you haven't already and put your name and your agency in the chat window so everybody knows who's here and we can check in with one another if we need to. And then I also want you all to be aware that we do have AOC Community Media with us today recording, and so this will be available as a recording after. It's also live streaming, I believe. Is that right, Matt? And so we will, I just want to make sure that you're aware of that. If you have questions as we go through it, then go ahead and take yourself off of mute. If there's some background noise, we may mute you. And we do ask that you remain on mute when you're not talking, just to help us with keeping that background noise at a minimum. But we do want you to feel free to ask questions and to interject if you need clarification or something like that as we go through it. Today is our opportunity to look back over the last couple of months, and we do have a number, there's the agenda on the screen, a number of partners here to give us their updates. The first one on our agenda is 232 Help, and Nika is here to share with us what they have been seeing in the last couple of months through 232 Help. Nika, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Thank you. So I just want to say thank you for having us at the meeting. And before I kind of jump into everything, I really just want to express my appreciation to my staff members who aren't able to be on the call today. Pierre, who pulled the numbers for us, and of course, all of our INRs on the phone who are really just taking these calls and navigating all of these workflows. So let's go ahead and jump in. So this is the second quarter, and our met needs of number of calls for seeking shelter was 300 865. Now we did see pretty much a decrease from the first quarter, but of course the first quarter did include the winter storm as well. So that accounted for the decrease. We also have 43 calls, people seeking help with housing or eviction assistance. I'm really interested in to see how that's going to play out in the next quarter, because we do have the end of the eviction and foreclosure moratoriums coming up on July 31st. So time will tell. And number of calls for rent and utility assistance, 723. We did see an increase there with the rental and utility assistance programs, such as the emergency rental assistance through the state, but also LEAP for Lafayette Parish. And number of calls for housing listings or other housing related needs that don't fit into any of these above categories, that is 835. So that really could be anything from someone calling and saying they are looking for a low income apartment, or maybe an elderly apartment complex or apartment complex for individuals with disabilities. So there are a few different needs that could fit into that category. So unmet needs, number of calls seeking shelter that was unmet, 42. And that is not something that it's a little bit difficult to track unmet needs sometimes, because unless a person might call back more than once and say, look, I was unable to get this assistance, sometimes we never know. But if they do call back and say they were ineligible or somehow unable to access the resource that we gave them, then we do mark it as unmet. Also, we may be marking things as unmet if there is just no resource to refer them to that's in our database. So there are a couple of reasons why we would mark that as unmet. Number of calls for people seeking help with housing or eviction assistance, that was unmet, 4. Rental and utility assistance, unmet, 60 calls there. And again, that might just be someone calling back and saying that they were unable to get assistance through the programs that we referred them to. And the number of calls for housing listings or other housing related needs not fitting into the above category that were unmet, 36. One thing that I would like to point out, especially for our calls for people seeking shelter, is that these are not necessarily unique callers. A lot of times we do have people calling back just trying to check on, in their words, the status. And of course, we do kind of inform them that when we fill out this ARCH survey with them, it's not an application. But they frequently will call back just wanting to check and see if there's been any forward motion. And of course, we just always direct them to what ARCH has told us, that ARCH is going to contact them if there's availability or if there's more information that's needed from the caller. So I think it's important to realize that even though we do have 365 calls for shelter, that is not necessarily 365 unique callers. However, with the rental and utility assistance, we do have less follow-up calls for that. So I would say that there are probably more, a higher percentage of unique callers calling for rental and utility assistance because the eligibility for that is pretty broad. If anybody's income has been reduced or stopped as a result of the COVID pandemic, they probably would be eligible if they meet the requirements. So those are a little bit more, you see a little bit more unique callers. And are we doing questions now? Or are we waiting until the end?
We can do it now if somebody has questions about your update.
I have a quick question. What do you consider the need met for the rental and utility assistance? They actually received that service, or that y'all gave them the referral to get into the application process?
That would be that we've given them the referral to for them to get the application process started.
Okay, so they didn't actually get their need met. They just were given a referral. Gotcha. That's what I'm the same with all the other ones, I'm guessing too. Y'all just give the referral to the organizations that will be meeting these needs, right?
Right. That's how our system tracks it as far as met or unmet. So met would basically mean that we do have a resource in our database that's active, that's providing that service that we referred them to. And that's just kind of how our system works. I don't want to get into this too much, but we do have care coordination, which is a little bit more involved in tracking the outcome of those referrals. But this is not counting our care coordination. This is just strictly counting inbound telephone calls and texting, which we don't have a whole lot of text inbound right now. It's maybe just a few per week. Any other questions? Okay, well, with that, I will turn it back over to you, Lee, and thank y'all, everybody.
Thanks so much, Nika. I appreciate you sharing that. And of course, you guys for taking all the calls all the time and helping people get connected. It's an important service in our community. All right, so I'm actually next up to give the update related to ARCH. And so I will share, many of you guys have been following along as we work to help people that have been in the COVID FEMA-funded non-congregate shelter program reestablish housing. And so we, at one point, that was about 500 households at its peak. Currently, that program has less than 50 remaining households. So we are beginning to see the end of that process. And over 250 of those households have moved into some type of supportive housing program, and others have moved into market rate housing or other friends and family, those kinds of situations. A lot of that has been thanks to our partnership with the Lafayette Housing Authority, and Ms. Lydia will talk a little bit more about the Housing Authority in a few minutes. The other piece that I want to highlight is that, of course, this role for ARCH directly providing this assistance through the hotels, it has been a unique situation for ARCH. Generally, we're more in an overall supportive mode. And we do have the Share House program, which
is at the end, but you kick butt.
Sorry, there's somebody needs to mute. Okay. There we go. And so there is a Share House program operating through ARCH, which is currently very busy trying to keep up with all the move-ins from the hotel and into housing. Share House is our program that collects furniture and housewares, and we redistribute those to people who are reestablishing housing after a time of homelessness. We are currently moving about 6 to 8 households a week out of homelessness and into housing. And we do that in partnership with anyone who is moving households out of homelessness and into housing. So if you're currently working with a household in need, I would encourage you to contact ARCH on their behalf. We do work directly through the agencies, so the person can't call us directly. You would call on their behalf. And that, so those two items are kind of the ongoing pieces. We have also been meeting as a coalition on a biweekly basis to try to identify solutions for the shelter shortage in our region, and have begun to move forward with a plan following some national best practices around converting a hotel to both affordable housing as well as emergency shelter for those experiencing homelessness. And so I think we're really starting to see that plan begin to formalize and finalize, and hopefully within the next couple of weeks we can take some definitive steps and identify some options for funding that. So that's kind of a teaser for what's coming. But it's been a lot of really good hard work in the background to get everybody who works within the realm of homeless services thinking about what our community needs as a whole and determining a best practice and a best way forward that might really work for our community to solve some of the shelter shortage that COVID has created on a long-term basis. So I'm real excited about those developments, and so stay tuned for some more details around that. And I think that's the end of my update as it relates directly to Arch. Melinda, you're up next with Habitat.
Thanks, Lee. I guess before I launch into my update, does anybody have any questions for Lee? That's some pretty exciting news.
Thanks. I forgot to let you guys ask questions.
And if not, I may just join you tomorrow night when G joins you for the walkthrough. So
Sure.
Really interested to see what happens there. But I'm Melinda Taylor with Lafayette Habitat for Humanity. And of course, we work on the front of first-time home ownership for people who wouldn't be able to access the commercial market typically, or find a home for an amount of a loan they could qualify for that's affordable. And that's a big problem in our market right now. The lack of affordable entry-level housing for people who could qualify for a market rate mortgage in the sub $150 range, but finding something is a real challenge right now. So we excitingly just admitted 20 new prospective home buyers to our partnership program, and we'll begin working with them almost immediately. But those folks applied in the spring, and we've gone through the process of reviewing their applications. And so we're excited to bring 20 new folks on board for the opportunity to own a home. And we're just about to wrap up construction of 3 homes that were delayed a bit by a variety of circumstances around the pandemic and funding, and also weather, as it turns out. On Georgia Street in the Macombize subdivision area, and we'll be building 2 more homes starting almost immediately over there. And then we'll be beginning some construction, which we're very excited about, should be this fall in the Laplace neighborhood. So opening up and beginning to work in a new neighborhood. And when we go into a neighborhood, we really try our best to work in partnership with the folks who already have a stake there, homeowners and business owners and people who are working to improve or active in the neighborhood. So moving into Laplace, and also potentially we'll be building a home in the Oasis neighborhood coming up fairly soon. So opening up some work there. And we're also thrilled to be able to say that, fingers crossed, knock on wood, we'll be back in our offices, which flooded back in May during the big rain event we had, and are just now getting wrapped up in all of the flood remediation and rebuilding happening. So we may have a little open house over there just to celebrate once we get back in, but that's probably going to be the first week of August. So, and we want to thank the folks. I don't know if anybody from LPTFA is on this call today, but we were very graciously offered a spot over there to camp out while our offices were being renovated. And they've been wonderful to let us really kind of take over their facilities for a lot of different meetings and activities. And I want to thank them for that. One other quick note, as Lee was talking about the rental assistance programs and they're moving forward, there was also funding approved through ARPA for homeowner assistance for people who are in danger of foreclosure or have fallen delinquent on their mortgages. And that money has gone out to the states, and a lot of people are already starting to get that out to homeowners in need. We've been a little bit behindhand here. LHC is administering those funds. The plan for the program that they proposed to create to get them out to people who need them was released, and the comment period was over yesterday. So our state housing alliance, of which Acadiana Housing Alliance is a part, sent some pretty pointed comments to many different entities around those rules, which we feel need some tightening up and changing to really touch the people who most need the help. But the good news is that however it gets out the door, some funding is in the offing to help homeowners who have fallen delinquent on their mortgages due to impacts from the COVID pandemic. So watch for that, and we'll be putting out some more information about it as we get it. And finally, another AHA note for Habitat, because part of our our way of operating is to partner with as many organizations as possible who are like-minded and working in the housing space. So we're very interested in continuing the conversation that was started this past week around housing counseling and getting our network of entities who do housing counseling, housing and financial counseling actually, working together to identify gaps and working to meet the needs and close those gaps in the system. So we had a good meeting earlier this week with a small group, and we'll be extending that group to a larger number of folks in the not too distant future. So I think that's all from Habitat. And if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to take them. All right, well, thank you.
Thanks, Melinda. And we actually had the Housing Counseling Committee a little later, but thanks for jumping right in since you were talking anyway. That makes the most sense. And so we will, let's see, who's next here? Oh, Miss Lydia. Let's see. Are you still on here? I know you were talking earlier.
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Oh, there
yes,
you are.
ma'am, I'm still
Great.
here.
Sometimes
Thank
it's hard
you.
to see people inside all these little boxes of faces.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lydia Bergeron. I'm the Executive Director of the Lafayette Housing Authority. The great news is that we were able to reopen our doors on July the 1st after 15 months of being closed. And I can tell you that the residents as well as the staff, we're all excited that we can now speak to one-on-one. We do have all the precautions for the masks and the gloves and the, sanitizers, so on and so forth. But our residents have started coming in. They're so very happy. We're addressing all of their needs. I have with me today Ms. Linda Anderson, the Section 8 Director, Mr. Milton, who, if I start listing what he does, we'll all need a war and peace novel. And then I have Ms. Carla West, who is my assistant. Linda's going to address what we're doing with Section 8 and the emergency housing vouchers. Mr. Milton can address what we're doing as it relates to RAD. We have 2 of our 6 developments under the RAD program, Rental Assistance Development. And that's the news from our front. Do y'all have any questions? Okay, can I ask Miss Linda to give an update?
Yep, that would be great.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. As most of you know, we are working with Arch for our homeless and our disabled families. We signed an MOU with Arch for 100 homeless vouchers. That is our second go round. The first go round we had 50, so it's a total of 150. We also signed an MOU for which is mainstream. We were issued 160 vouchers for mainstream. Right now, currently we stand at 124 that we have housed, and the mainstream is the families that are disabled. We have currently 14.
Miss Linda, I'm sorry to interrupt you. You're kind of cutting in and out. I don't know if you can get closer to a microphone or something.
Up here, Linda. Okay, how far back do you want me to go?
Maybe just repeat the last thing you said and keep going.
Okay. Well, for the mainstream, that's our disabled families. Like I said, we have 160 vouchers for that. Right now, we have 124 of those families housed. Although we do have 14 that are searching, and we just received, we have 11 new apps from Jennifer. And I want to, I don't know if she's on, but if she's not, tell her that thank you for the hard work that she's doing, sending us the applications for the families and stuff. So we're working on that. We're doing pretty good. Once we house the 25, those that are searching in the new apps, we're only going to need 14 left to reach our goal of 163. So that will be a good thing. We also just received the emergency voucher, the emergency vouchers. We've received 37. As of yesterday, we started receiving the applications. I've received 3 so far. And like I said, I know Jennifer's working hard. So as soon as we get the rest of it done, then we'll have all those goals met. So that's what we're doing here. As far as the Cardinal Gardens, we are taking applications for those units.
And you cut out again. What are you taking applications for?
Cardinal Gardens only.
That's our red.
The red units. That was the Moss and Simcoe units that are rehabbed. We have a small waiting list as it is as of right now. But if you know anyone that would want to, I know they may need emergency housing, but if they could at least get on that list, what that is they would have to live in the housing for a year. Then they would automatically get a voucher and move wherever they want to. But that's the only thing that, other than that, that's the only thing that we have open right now as far as taking applications.
Okay, great. That was a lot of information. I know it was a little bit hard to hear. Does anybody have specific questions, or did you miss something that you think needs to be repeated? Great, thanks. Yeah, our housing authority in Lafayette has been doing a lot to try to keep up with there's been some increase in vouchers. And so the housing authority staff has been really great to work with. A lot of the vouchers have been prioritized for folks that have already lost their housing so that they can get back into housing. And I really appreciate the hard work of your staff. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, Elsa is putting in the chat that we'll get those numbers that you shared, Miss Linda, and share them out in written format, because I know a number of people are indicating that they were having a hard time hearing and understanding that. So we'll get that information from you. Okay. Is Mary with LCG on the phone?
I am. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, thanks. Great.
Hey, everybody. My name is Mary Slyman. I am the old Director of Development and Planning, now the Director of Community Development and Planning, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. But I'm actually going to ask Shane to give the update on the emergency rental assistance.
Hi, I'm Shane Rougeau. I'm the grants manager in the former Community Development Department, current Community Development and Planning. We are managing LCG's LEAP program. This is funded with the Emergency Rental Assistance Program that 232 Help had mentioned earlier. As most of you may know, LCG received an allocation directly from the U.S. Treasury in the amount of about $7 million for the purpose of rental assistance and utility assistance. We have partnered with Catholic Charities of Acadiana and Smile Community Action Agency to disperse these funds because they have existing programs in place for this type of service. The program can pay up to 12 months in rental arrears, as well as 3 months going forward for rental assistance. And then if applicants need additional assistance after that, they can reapply for another 3 months. And it's up to a maximum of 15 months total arrears plus future assistance. Also, we can do the same for utility assistance. They can apply for utility assistance for 3 months at a time. At this point, with both Catholic Charities and Smile working together, they have approved a total of 1,180 households for assistance. And we've spent about $4 million of our initial $7 million allocation. So our progress is going well. We're on track to spending everything. At Tuesday's city and parish council meetings, they approved an additional $8.8 million in the same assistance type that we will be receiving through the state of Louisiana. We're partnering with the state of Louisiana Office of Community Development, and they are partnering with the Louisiana Go Step to reimburse us for, you know, the $8.8 million that we'll give out. We have until September of 2022 to spend all of these funds. And like I said before, by my calculation, we're on track to spending those funds. What we are doing is getting weekly reports from both agencies to, you know, to see what their numbers are. And we're reporting those funds to the state. And we're monitoring the trends to see if, you know, people keep applying on a regular basis, or, you know, or the application's petering out. It seems to be pretty steady so far. If we see that the applications start to slow down, we have money set aside for marketing campaigns. And, you know, we also ask that you guys get the word out. A lot of grant funds that LCG receives are only for the city of Lafayette and the unincorporated parts of the parish, but these particular funds can be used in the smaller municipalities as well. It's total Lafayette, entire Lafayette parish, city of Carencro, Scott, Broussard, Youngsville, town of Dussault. People living in those smaller municipalities can also apply for these funds through Catholic Charities or Smile. Besides that, there is a second grant that we are receiving for the same purpose directly from the Treasury for $5.7 million. This is on top of what we received so far. We have longer to spend that. The $7 million we got directly and the 8.8 through the state, we need to spend that by September of 2022. This additional 5.7 million, we'll need to spend that by September of 2025. So what we're doing is we're concentrating on spending down these funds that have to be spent quicker. And, you know, and then we'll move on to spending down the rest of them. That's it in a nutshell. I saw I had a question in the chat, so I'll answer that question in chat. Let's see, is it working with the court system on evictions? I know that Smile Community Action Agency is going to eviction court, and they're set up, and if anyone has, you know, I think from what I understand, the judges can send people to Smile at the court and they can work with them over there. So they are able to, you know, to do that. They do have a presence at the court. And I see that we had put a link for assistance in parishes outside of Lafayette. Yeah, if anyone lives around Acadiana and they're not in Lafayette Parish, they can go directly to the state. Anyone inside of Lafayette Parish needs to go through our LEAP program. If there are any questions, I can answer questions.
I had a quick question, if that's okay. And hi, Shane, this is Maxwell Chardulo. I'm with the Louisiana Fair Housing Action Center. And we worked with the state and a lot of different larger parishes in setting up their rental assistance programs. I just wanted to follow up on that question about coordinating with the courts, because I think especially after the eviction moratorium ends in a week or two, that coordination is sort of going to be our only option to catch people before they fall into homelessness. And I know that there's been a really successful program in New Orleans where the Office of Community Development, the courts, and the legal aid provider here, I know in your area, it's Acadiana Legal Services, have been working together where the courts submit their dockets to the city immediately and proactively reaches out to anyone who has an upcoming court date and offers those landlords rental assistance and slides them into priority spots to get that money out ahead of time and make sure we prevent those evictions. And then they also ensure that they're connected to the legal services. And that seems like, I know that that's something that they're planning to do here in New Orleans after the moratorium falls as well, to continue doing that. And you know, assuming landlords want money more than they want to put someone out, we could end up preventing a whole lot of evictions. And so I'm wondering if that's something that y'all are planning to do as well, or if that's currently happening.
I know that whenever the courts first approached us about it, there was talk about that. I'll follow up with Smile. Would you be able to email me, maybe email me some information? I'll type my email address in the chat.
That's great. Yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, and then we can follow up on that. It sounds like a great idea.
Thanks for sharing that, Maxwell. Are there other questions or comments? Okay.
All right, well, thanks.
Or Shane, did y'all want to say anything else on that?
No, if anyone has any questions, I put my email address in there. Feel free to email me.
Great. Okay, well, next up is the Acadiana Legal Services. And so I think we have Taylor Robinson here from there. There you are, I see you.
Hi. Hi, I'm Taylor Robinson. I'm a staff attorney with Acadian Legal Services. I work in our litigation unit, and we're the unit that handles housing issues and eviction issues. So we have seen a large increase in evictions since COVID and the pandemic. Although it has slowed down recently with the extension. But we do anticipate a large increase coming in the following month. But basically, anyone who's having any sort of housing issue, they can contact our office, and we take them as an emergency case if it's eviction related. So they kind of go to the front of the line, and we review them on a case-by-case basis. And in a lot of cases, we've been going to court with them. We've seen that the judges are really receptive to if the client has the CDC moratorium form. Yeah, so basically, right now, that's been the best option we've had. And we've also negotiated. It's been handy to negotiate with the tenants and the landlords, because there tends to be a communication block between the two. The tenants don't want to talk to the landlords. So by the time we're negotiating, the landlord's frustrated that this person hasn't talked to them for months on end. So we've been able to kind of step in, tell them about the SMILE program, the Catholic Charities program. So that's been a really good prevention for the actual eviction process. So that's really about, sums it up for right now.
Okay, and Taylor, if somebody is in need of legal assistance or advice related to housing or evictions, the best way is to contact your office by telephone?
Yeah, it would be the best way. We do have an online system, but I think it's giving us issues right now. But the quickest way is to call just our office number.
Great, thanks. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay. Next up is Jody Ware with Rebuilding Together from Catholic Charities of Acadiana to give an update on the response that they have been going through.
Hi, can you hear me?
Sure can.
All right, awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna talk a little bit about what Rebuilding Together has going on, and also what we have through disaster response. So for the 2021 season, we had flooding in May, and so we've had 48 requests for services in regards to that, 17 muck outs, 17 homes that need tarps, and 13 with debris removal. We currently have 8 of those homes in progress. Many of them have been mucked out, but we're trying to put them back together or do mold remediation on them right now. In addition to that, for the 2020 storm season, we have 27 houses in progress currently, and 55 that have been assessed. And we've got 2 that we've got volunteer groups working on this week. So just continuing to be active in long-term recovery for the 2020 season and also with the new 2021 season. In addition to that, Rebuilding Together, we are trying to ramp up and expand our services that we keep talking about, blue skies, which we really haven't had. So we're shifting our focus to be more cognizant of the houses that have had delayed maintenance and also that need home modification. So in the last several weeks, we've completed 3 wheelchair ramp construction projects and are trying to get our core team trained up so that they can start doing those on a very regular basis. In addition to 2 houses that we've done some significant, like major rehab work too. So we're going to start chipping away at our waiting list for that. So feel free to start referring people if you have that are in need of some home modifications. And I can give out our referral line, which is 337-291-9910, and that will get them through to our team, our Rebuilding Together team. Does anybody have any questions about that? I know that was a quick report, but.
Perfect. Can you give us a quick rundown on eligibility for that?
Yes, so our RAMPS program has a pretty loose eligibility. We work with low-income homeowners that are elderly and disabled, usually for Rebuilding Together. But with the RAMPS program, they can be in a rental property. We just have to have landlord permission, or if they're like in a mobile home park, which is pretty typical, we just have to get permission from the park owner or the landowner for us to build those ramps on their property. But otherwise, for our regular rehab and actual home modifications, over the age of 60 or with a physical disability, and they must be low to moderate income and own their home, which creates some challenges sometimes. We've been referring quite a few people to Acadiana Legal Services for succession.
Jody, can you repeat that number?
The referral line number?
Yeah.
Yes, it's 337-291-9910.
Thanks. It looks like Elsa got
and
that.
If you're referring folks there, we do have people that answer the phones, but on occasion, you know, we're all out in the field. So they might have to leave a voicemail, but we do get back to people pretty quickly.
Great, thanks. Are there any other questions for Jody? Mary, it looks like we're back to you for an update on the combination of departments.
Yeah, so just a little bit of history on the kind of where this all started with the moving of, or the breaking up, if you will, of community development. In 2019, as part of the mayor's transition team, there was a recommendation from the community development members who served on that team, who recommended that we look at some of the housing and federal programs, divisions, and human services, and recommended that they actually reside alongside our planning division, which is currently housed, or was housed, in the development and planning department. So this again was in December 2019. I was not at LCG at the time, and I didn't realize all of this about the transition team's recommendation. But when the mayor revisited that and started actually working on, what does community development look like in the future, they brought me in at that point because I was the director, and we started having conversations. And I actually volunteered and said, look, the housing and human services and housing with our grants division really needs to be merged with development and planning. And so when I found out about the transitions team's recommendation, it was kind of ironic. I was like, well, I guess it's meant to be, right? So so we started working, myself, Hollis, the Sidra, the CAO, and the mayor president about, okay, so what does the future look like with Parks and Recreation at the time, and Development and Planning, and Community Development. And after we looked at the organizational chart, we knew what the transition team's recommendations were by that time. And so we just kind of started talking about, let's just pick up those divisions in their entirety, because there were no changes in staff. Everybody's still there. They're still doing the same thing they were prior to July 7th. But we'll just pick up those divisions, and Human Services and Grants Management will go to Development and Planning and become Community Development and Planning. And then we will take the arts and culture piece with the Nature Station, Hyman Center, Science Museum, and move those into Parks and Recreation. And then we obviously have renamed Parks and Rec to Parks, Arts, Recreation, and Culture. Park for short, PARC. So if you hear it referred to as Park, that's what it stands for now. And so we put that process in place. We obviously talked with the managers at the time. So most of the staff knew this was in the works, and we sent it to the councils back in May, if I'm not mistaken, and it became effective on July 7th. I'm very excited to kind of enter this new world. I've been sitting with Belle and with Shane for weeks prior to it actually becoming the formal reorganization, just to get my feet wet and get involved in all of their day-to-day stuff. So I'm still learning, but it is it's interesting. I'm excited. I think with Belle and Shane, we've got some great things moving forward. We're definitely looking at our services that are offered and our communication of those, and being able to expand on them if possible. So we're already kind of talking about what is the future of those two divisions, and how do we get the word out about what LCG offers in that regard. So does anybody have any questions? All right.
Well, thanks, Mary, for giving that update, and I'm glad to have you on today and to be able to work more closely with you. So we typically worked on that side of the community development program. So, all right. So next up, we have Maxwell Chiardolo, who is with the Louisiana Fair Housing Action Center. And he is giving us an update. I know some of you were on the call a couple months ago when he gave us a rundown of some advocacy opportunities. And so there's been a big win he gets to share with us, and then perhaps any other updates real quick.
Thanks, Lee. Yeah, this is exciting to be able to share a win. So we've been working for a couple years with the Louisiana Housing Corporation on trying to ensure that their grantees, so primarily low-income housing tax credit developers and landlords, use inclusive criminal background screening policies. And this is something that HUD put out guidance on in 2016, talking about the Fair Housing Act and how policy like blanket bans on people with criminal records likely violate the Fair Housing Act, because we know our system of mass incarceration disproportionately impacts Black and Brown communities. And also it doesn't actually make us any safer if, when people are released and are coming home from incarceration, they actually have no place to live and are forced to couch surf or be homeless. And so it took a few years, and it actually took, I think what really made the difference this year is we had a lot of people with criminal records who attended LHC meetings and told their stories of being denied from buildings and having no place to stay, and often being relegated to slum properties because those are the only places that wouldn't run their background. And that really, I think, changed some hearts and minds. And the LHC listened, and we had some great conversations with staff. And July 14th, at their most recent board meeting, they passed a new policy as part of their qualified allocation plan. And so there's now a new tenant screening policy that all 60,000 LIHTC units that already exist will be subject to, and then any new units produced from here on out will also be subject to. And so they're doing that outreach now to their current grantees, and they're going to have to submit new tenant selection policies by the end of the year. So especially for folks at Acadiana Legal Services, if you have intakes of folks who are being denied because of criminal records starting next year, and that's a LIHTC building or an LHC grantee, we've got recourse there. I'm happy to drop the policy in the chat so that everybody gets a look. The basics are that you can't consider only arrests or sealed or expunged records or juvenile records. And then you have to give different consideration to convictions that are, misdemeanors or that are nonviolent. And you have to give different consideration based on how long ago those convictions happened to make sure that we aren't sort of having, long ago records following people around and denying them from housing for years. So yeah, I'm happy to take any questions about that. But I should also say that to Miss Lydia and Miss Linda, who were on earlier, that the Lafayette Housing Authority's inclusive policy was part of our inspiration for this. And that was part of, I think, what made it possible to do this, is that both the Lafayette Housing Authority and the Housing Authority of New Orleans had implemented similar inclusive background screening policies in the past couple of years, and those have proved really successful. So we were able to say, this isn't just something that works other places, it's worked here already.
Thank you, Maxwell. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Great. It's always nice to hear when advocacy efforts have paid off and we get to see the result of, as you mentioned, years of talks. And so thank you very much for staying in that struggle and for getting it done. Appreciate your leadership there. Okay, so getting back to our agenda, Melinda did already provide the update for the Housing Counseling Committee.
I don't know whether Belle wants to add anything since she's...
Yeah, I think I saw Belle earlier. Belle, did you want to add something to the work that you guys have going on? She may be in listen-only mode. Yeah. And then Elsa, you want to give a quick update on the data committee's work for the Housing Alliance?
Yeah, so we've met several times since the last joint meeting, and we collectively decided to use the HUD Estimating Future Homelessness spreadsheet as a jumping off point and then tailor it to local needs. And so we've begun filling those in with the appropriate information from the appropriate agency. And when that agency isn't represented by someone on the data committee, then we're reaching out to get that information. Next month, we're going to assess what our progress is with regard to completing that spreadsheet, and then we're going to discuss a landing place for that spreadsheet so that it's outward facing and external, and then getting links to all agencies or organizations that can share on their website, so that as that information is updated regularly, there's a live link for anyone that would like to access that information, and that link is available in as many places as possible so that people don't really have to hunt for it. So that is the data committee. Do you want me to sort of plow right into the House campaign? Okay, so the National Low Income Housing Coalition has a 2021 Housed campaign for long-term affordable housing. And that campaign centers around advancing anti-racist policies and looking at large-scale sustained investments and reforms that are necessary to make sure that renters with the lowest incomes have an affordable place that they can call home. So there are four primary goals to this campaign. The first is expanding rental assistance to every eligible household, expanding the supply of rental homes that are affordable and accessible to people. Important to point out that there is no state or congressional district in the US with enough supply of affordable housing for the families that with the lowest incomes. So that is a pretty grave statement. Providing emergency rental assistance to people to households in crisis, and then strengthening and enforcing renter protections. And so there are regular calls, and that anybody can jump on. So I highly encourage anybody who's interested in this sort of more national or state level advocacy work to hop on those calls. And so a couple of things that they most recently went over is first, something that they call the out of reach report. And I'm going to kind of just go through this really, really quickly. But it's that idea of how much does a full-time worker need to afford, to earn to afford rent and utilities at a fair market rent, or FMR. And so you can see that this is going to be hard for me because I have to look at another screen. In Louisiana, it's $17.82 in 2021 for a 2-bedroom rental housing wages. That means a full-time worker must earn $17.82, working 40 hours per week, 52 weeks per year, in order to afford a 2-bedroom rental home without becoming cost burdened. So that's 30% of their income. I'm not going to zoom in because I'm going to also give you guys the link so you can do this, but I want to assure you that Lafayette is the darkest blue color. So that's more than 80 hours per week for someone at minimum wage to afford a 1-bedroom rental home in 2021. So, and what's neat, I'm going to go to the website in just a second so that you guys can see it live, but you can really drill down to the area code, your state, your street. It's really, you can definitely go down the rabbit hole of data if that's something that you're interested in. They also broke it down to give you an idea of what kind of jobs would even make that possible. And so you can see in the orange, that would be the affordability for a 2-bedroom house, and the second is a 1-bedroom house, and by house I mean home. And you can see that many positions would not be able to afford that at the national level, right? Including, office and administrative support workers on average, secretaries, administrative officer, assistants, pest control workers, home health aides, etc. And so this is, I'm going to go live in just a second, but I did want to show you that you can really drill down on that information, like I said, by state, county, metro, well, parish, metro, or zip code. And then they also talked about the child tax credit, which qualifying households receive $3,600 for each child under 6 years old, or $3,000 for each child between 6 and 17 years of age. They did want to encourage people to, when working with clients, that it's necessary to take advantage of this, but letting people know that VITA sites, that's volunteer income tax assistance, are overwhelmed and understaffed right now. So you may have to work with your clients in sort of a, maybe not a way that you have in the past, to make sure that they're taking advantage of this tax credit. And so helping non-filers, because they need to have submitted their 2020 tax return in order to take advantage of this. So help non-filers support their, submit their info to the IRS non-filer portal, or file a 2020 tax return. And again, that website will have those links for you. They also talked about the emergency rental assistance program at a national level. They're really looking at, they're tracking the efficacy and the implementation of programs at a national level. But again, you can drill down by location, and so that's really helpful. And also, if you're in a place that is, let's say, outside of Lafayette, there are links. You enter in your zip code, it tells you exactly where to go. So I did want to just take 1 second. I'm mindful of your time, but this is the website for that housed campaign. And as you can see, like, you can click here and look at, join work groups and calls, look at key legislation. There's toolkits available. So if you want to disseminate that information, and let me just scroll down here. Here, if you look under take action, immediately there's a way to join the national campaign, which means mostly that you're getting newsletters and updates, sign national letters, see a current list of signatories, and then contact your representatives and senators. They really make it as easy as possible for you to get engaged at an advocacy level. And I know that that's something that we really want to offer to everyone in the Acadiana Housing Alliance, that there's ways to really plug in and have your voice heard. And then again, let me go back for just 1 second. When I was talking about the out of reach report, this is where you can enter in, for example, I pre-entered in 70506, and you go and see, you can really see it drills down. And of course you can zoom in, and I'm not going to belabor the point, but you can really get down and dirty and with this data and really see how numbers change from neighborhood to neighborhood. So thank you so much. I'm here to answer questions, but mostly my answer will probably be go to the website. So let me close this and go back to here. There you go. I did it.
You did it really fast. Great. Thanks for the quick overview. Are there other questions or issues that need to be brought to the table? I know we're nearing the end of the time, and sometimes that makes people a little shy to say something, but please, if there are questions or if there is an issue that we need to bring up as a community to talk through, don't be shy, and let's get those things lifted up.
Hey Lee, this is Alfredo. Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Hi, this is Alfredo Cruz with Housing Louisiana. Elsa, you did a tremendous job summarizing Out of Reach. So proud. It's terrific. And I just wanted to emphasize one point that housing affordability is not just about building more housing. It's the wages, and we're hearing a lot about that when we hear all these employers complaining that workers are not going back to work. We have an opportunity, and this report provides a lot of tools and data for us to make that case. We have got to start paying the wages needed for people to afford where they live. And I was excited to hear Mary talk about this new thinking about the Office of Community Development, and the Office of Economic Development must play a role because we have got to solve for wages. And so I want to encourage you all to push for that conversation to also be about wages and income for families, that it isn't just about building and development, it's about also building our families and their economic security so that they can afford where they live. Thanks, Lee, for letting me say that, and congratulations, and Elsa, great job presenting the summary.
Thanks very much for lifting that up, Alfredo. It's definitely an important key point that we need to be looking at kind of the whole system for how to best support families and make sure that housing is accessible to everybody, affordable, accessible, safe. Other questions or comments?
Yes, I have one, or just a comment, if you can hear me. James Proctor, I live in Laplace, and some of us in the coterie and with the city who I'm going to guess are not attending this meeting because a lot of what you've been saying, the whole group has been saying, is stuff that kind of overlaps about to embark on. We kind of wanted to get a map of our neighborhood similar to the one that I've seen generated from Macomb Vise that assesses kind of where we're at as a neighborhood in terms of a lot of things, adjudicated properties, but also maybe more importantly to this group, people who are having trouble with the succession, because that's something I see time and again around me is families who lose those homes, and then there's a home and that they would have that they no longer have, and a value that they would have that they no longer have because they can't negotiate that simple succession. And there's a couple other things, but when I heard, I think it was it you, Ms. Ware, Jody, that you were talking about, you would refer to Ms. Taylor Robinson's organization for them to figure out how to do that succession. I was just wondering if it's possible that we could, since we want to do something and we have some people who are interested in doing something, if we could kind of work together where we're not exactly reinventing the wheel here, but we're kind of being value added in terms of bringing information to the table that's maybe not directly related to homelessness and that issue, but certainly somewhere on that continuum, I think.
And James, we actually did talk about that as an issue that in the housing counseling team that needs to be more regularly addressed in a way that invites people in to hear information and to get information they need about how to secure family property and how properties fall into adjudication and what families can do to prevent that. So that's something that I think is going to be in the offing, is maybe some kind of a workshop or series of workshops that are available to people, maybe based in each neighborhood on that. And Tina can probably help you with that map. She actually created the one I think you may be referring to from Macomb Bize with the all the overlays with adjudicated property and new housing development and new sites for economic development. So,
and I've talked to her already about that, and I'm going to schedule some time with her when she has a free moment. She's super busy, but,
yeah,
definitely, yeah. Okay, well, I just wanted to kind of throw that out there and say that we're interested in doing something specifically with mapping the neighborhood, and then how that, how we can get that information in a way that we're not reinventing the wheel, but if we can also, like, I imagine that a lot of the times that these things are coming across people's plate is because it's self-reported, right? Like, hey, I've run into a family, they're having an issue because they can't do the succession. But if we have the bodies to get out there and actually survey our neighborhood, then we might get a little bit of lead time on some of these things where we can actually do it before it's a crisis, hopefully. That's all I got.
Yeah, James, thanks for bringing that up. I think when neighborhoods get involved and want to solve the issues, then we can learn from one another in the ways that other neighborhoods have done that, and make sure people are tapped into the various resources. It's part of the reason why we have these calls, is to help keep everybody rowing in the same direction, as they say. And so we're not all reinventing the wheel. If we are working separately, then we run that risk. And so, yeah, I would definitely encourage you to stay in touch with Tina and the work of the Housing Counseling Subcommittee of the Housing Alliance, if you want to join in with that group to learn more about what they're doing. I would encourage you to just reach out. Melinda would probably be the best contact there. Great. Are there other questions or comments? I see Clancy put in the chat that she attended the town hall about the ARPA funds. The American Rescue Plan certainly provides a number of opportunities in terms of funding for community issues. And so I would definitely encourage anybody who isn't already to pay attention to the ways in which both our state and our local governments are planning and intending to use those funds, and to raise your voices for the need for housing infrastructure at the national, state, and local levels. And I think there's a number of opportunities there to raise this as an important issue for our community. So certainly would encourage you to do that, as individuals. And then if there's a coalition that wants to get together and do that, reach out, because we'd be interested. Anything else? Any other questions or discussion comments? All right, I know we're a little over time. I will just comment that the next time that ARCH and Acadiana Housing Alliance have a joint meeting, we do this every other month on the fourth Thursday, and so that falls on September 23rd at noon. Next month in August on the fourth Thursday, it'll be an ARCH meeting, which is a little bit more focused on homelessness response typically, but we would love to have you at either or both of those. So just get those on your calendar and look for those emails to be coming out shortly. And I think that's it. Well, I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your week. Thanks very much for joining us.